Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody inside and outside the ballpark. My name is NovedPlayer, and welcome to the 1-year episode of the Noved Notes Podcast, episode 52. First and foremost, thank you all so much for tuning in and staying this long, watching the podcast, listening to the podcast, depending on which of the 9 platforms you're on. With me today, I have a very special guest. She is an amazing world creator who has made over 28 different worlds. As you can already kind of see, we have Spookyghostboo. Spooky, welcome on.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. No, it is an honor. So I guess for the general listening audience at home, what exactly do you do on VRChat?
So on VRChat, I'm a world creator. I consider myself a 3D artist, and I just like environments in general. And I ultimately like building worlds. I'm most known for the Black Cat, which is like one of the biggest worlds on the platform. So everybody knows me from that. But other than that, I just make worlds. I sell on booth and post things on VRChat, and then I stare at mirrors.
Fair enough.
That's what I do.
No, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. This is absolutely crazy to finally meet you. So I guess one of the first questions I wanted to ask, what got you started into like VR development and like world development?
I started playing the game, and it just so happened that the thing that was most interesting to me was the environments that I could go into. And so most of me playing the game to begin with was me just going to random worlds and going to as many as possible. And it was pretty immediate that I think the whole reason why I stuck around was just because of how immediate I just wanted to build environments. It was like I was in here and I thought that was really cool. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'll build stuff. And then I just had to learn. But the reason why I got into it was because I started playing the game.
Fair enough. No, I mean, with having over 28 different worlds under your belt, kind of going back into the origins of things, because you've made all these different worlds, from, obviously the most notable being the Black Cat, but you've also made worlds, such as like the McMansion, the Suburban Lakehouse. You've made all sorts of different types of hangout spots. What kind of inspires you to create these atmospheric, places?
Most of the content that influenced me was the stuff that I was seeing on this game to begin with. So when I was playing back in like 2018, 2019, the main stuff, like the main hangout areas was a world called the Hangout House. And then it was like the Pug, and these are like super old school classic worlds that were really popular, and they'd be in all the YouTube videos you would see on VRChat. It was worlds like that I just really liked them, and I just wish at the very beginning, I wish there was like a million versions of all those things. On top of that, I was probably drawn to those anyways, especially the Hangout House. And building like mansions and stuff I'm the type of person who likes to go on like Zillow and just look at houses. And VR is kind of like an outlet where I can build anything. And I can't tell you why. I just like houses. So I was like drawn to those worlds, saw what other people were doing. And I know like some stuff is like some of the stuff when you're running around VRChat, you'll see a bunch of assets and stuff. And I like would find assets on the Unity asset store and then see what people were doing there, like even outside of the game. And then all my creative focus kind of just went into seeing what I could build and then putting it into this game. And that was like my origin story. So I liked all the stuff I was seeing from other creators at the time, and I was just trying to like emulate it, I guess, to the best of my ability.
Fair enough. So I guess one of the questions in that regard then, because you did mention like the asset store. So out of all the worlds, is it mostly made via Scratch from Blender, or is there a lot of Unity assets being used, or is it kind of like a mixture of both?
Yeah, all the stuff I do is all from scratch. So if you go from like my oldest worlds, it's it's I mean, you could see where I started, like when I started modeling with Pro Builder. The first Black Hat version was a Pro Builder world in Unity, which is Unity's like really simple 3D modeling software, which I don't know if it's a thing that you can still install and use, but that was like the starting point. And then eventually I moved to Blender. So I'm like all self-taught, all for this game.
Fair enough.
And the fun of it for me is the 3D modeling. So like it would be way simpler to just get some assets somewhere, which is totally valid to do that because building stuff is cool, but if you don't want to spend 100 hours modeling couches, but that's like the fun part for me is modeling the couches and the beds and everything else that goes into it.
No, absolutely. And
so yeah,
because mentioning like the time frame of things, out of curiosity, how much time estimate wise does it take to create a world, like one of the worlds that you've made?
I mean, it all depends. Typically, like the Black Hat will take there's like a Unity time frame and then like the 3D modeling time frame. And the 3D modeling for something like McMansion, if you're familiar with that one. McMansion was like a 2-month build maybe, so we're probably talking 80 to 100 something hours of 3D modeling. But then there's like the Unity time frame with it, which is all the stuff. Like after I get it in Unity and light it and it looks great, all the like extra scripts, like the mirrors and getting everything working and functioning, that's like the boring stuff. And that stuff ends up taking like almost as much time sometimes. So a world could take 2 to 3 months, depending on like how fast I'm going and how much time I'm spending on it. Because if you're looking at 100 hours of 3D modeling, all new stuff from scratch, that could take me 2 months to do. Or maybe it could take me 2 weeks if I do nothing but 3D
model. Fair enough. No, that's a relatable thing. It's just you work on one specific thing for nothing but that, and it takes so much less time. Even the podcast episodes have that comparison. Sometimes they'll take me,
it's like,
4 or 5 days, depending on how much visual stuff is added on the episode, and sometimes I'll crack it out in 4 hours and it'll be done. It's definitely an interesting thing. Well, that's awesome. And I guess kind of to, kind of go in a little bit deeper onto that topic. So it's crazy the amount of worlds that you have made, and they're very visually stunning, first and foremost. So out of curiosity, because obviously time has passed since like the original versions of said worlds. So throughout every year, there's more, VRChat updates and Unity updates. What was there any I guess what I'm trying to say is was there any issue going in between different Unity versions and like different creator companions and SDKs? Like, was there any issues or was it pretty simple?
There wasn't really so many. There really isn't any issues. It's a matter of just like doing it. If that makes sense. Like if VRChat doesn't update, I'm probably more annoyed than anything. It's probably better, but I'm annoyed because I was like, okay, now I have to figure out what they changed. Now I gotta, like, I'm in my process, in my zone. And it's when VRChat does updates to like newer versions, it's usually always better, but I'm just kind of like, ugh, what is creator companion? And then I'm annoyed that I have to do it. But then now it's like creator companion is like everything's right there, so everything's so much faster. But I guess to answer your question, it's just a matter of doing it, I guess.
No, fair enough. And I feel like that's the opinion of a lot of world creators in that regard. It's not the matter of like, is it difficult? It's just a matter of now I have to redo it and figure out what's wrong. Because worlds break and whatnot, and as we're now.
What's difficult for me is like the programming. I'm not a programmer at all, and I actually work with like Udon VR to help me with all my programming stuff in the Black Hat, and everything else I kind of just like have my programs that I like, my scripts that I use, whether it was commissioned from like other people or not. And I just hope those work for what I'm doing, because ultimately, like, I just wanna make the environment and exist in the environment. I mean, all of this extra stuff is like, like you see a creator like Jar or something, and you see the games that they make. Like that stuff is crazy to me and totally out of my expertise.
No, fair. It's kind of crazy what these people, when it comes to game developing inside of VRChat, can do. I mean, there's so many different types of games, different Udon code, all sorts of stuff, and that stuff's way over my head. Like it would take me
Yeah, same.
years, like it would take me decades to try to figure out. Like bro, I do music and I love talking to people. That's about the best I got going for me. But it's crazy to think that over the years it's changed so much when it comes to like VR chat and like what we do now versus what we do back then. Um, so kind of going into that a little bit, you know, we'll talk about the Black Cat a little bit, because obviously there's been multiple versions. There's been different eras of the VR or of the Black Cat, excuse me. um, so I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask, kind of putting you in the mindset of like the original Black Cat, did you ever think that it was going to be as popular as it was?
No. I mean, with anything that I was making it, at the time, so I like got into this game and I started making environments, and it was pretty immediate where I decided I wanted to transition into making a living doing this stuff instead of my other stuff. So everything that I was doing it with the mindset of like, okay, how do I like make this a thing? And I didn't know. So when I would make something like when I was making the Black Cat, I was hoping I would figure something out. So I was like preparing myself to do this long term. But I didn't expect it to blow up or anything. And the blow up was pretty immediate, which is kind of weird. I don't know what I don't know why people were drawn to it. Especially, I don't know if you've seen the old version recently or anytime recently, but it is very different than what's currently live.
No,
And not in a
absolutely.
good way.
Well, I mean, as we all know, when it comes to updates and stuff, it's a different era. I mean,
Yeah.
we went from one of the oldest versions of Unity to now here we are on Unity 2022. And give it about another,
Yeah.
6 months to a year time, we'll probably go up another update. Probably, not knock on wood, of course, but it's bound to happen, especially since certain headsets are being deprecated. Like the Quest 2 is now going out of style. The Quest 3S and the Quest 3 are now like essentially the minimum line now. Um, they've officially Rift is no longer. I mean, you can still technically use it per se, but it's not. That's not what they're focused on. Um,
I actually really like the Rift,
oh, absolutely.
which
I'll say,
I hated. So I mean, this has nothing to do with VRChat, but like Meta like completely threw like they launched the headset and they completely threw it away immediately, and there was so many bugs with it. Sorry, it has
no,
nothing to
no,
do with
no.
what we're talking about.
You're good.
But I'm really salty about it.
No, tangents are always fine. You don't have to apologize. It happens every episode. It's all good. Um, but no, unfortunately, I do agree with you on that front because Oculus had it set in stone, and then when they were bought out, it
Also,
just yeah. Go ahead.
no, even after they got bought out, like it was still fine, and they had like such a good, in terms of like social VR stuff, they had such a good platform on the Oculus Home system. It was a bit weird, and if they just fixed all the weird stuff, I swear, it would have been perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't. They just threw away the headset and didn't fix any of the bugs, and then here I
Yeah.
am 3, 4 years later, pissed off about it still. Back to the black cat or whatever else you want to talk about.
No, you're good. No, you're good. I mean, it's funny that we talked about, the quest side of things. So out of curiosity, because, with your world being, for the most part, quest compatible, I would say, what is probably one of the biggest issues when it comes to making like quest compatibility versus like full blown PC side of things?
I mean, it's just a difference in optimization at this point. It's not like I'm doing like crazy like game world where things need to run differently and there's like a bunch of stuff popping in and out that I have to worry about. At this point, it's really just a process. I like switch over to the Android version and then I know that I have to, these meshes probably aren't going to be good on Quest because they have like a certain shader, or all these are using a certain shader, so they're going to get switched over. It's just a matter of doing it. I have no real issues. The biggest thing, and I do sometimes have to be careful when I'm making stuff, is I need to limit the amount of like game objects that are going to be in the scene, because if you have 300 things in front of the player, on PC, that's, 300 draw calls is nothing, but on Quest, depending on the objects and how high poly they are, it's like they could be feeling it. So I try to keep that stuff in mind when I'm modeling or making stuff. But yeah, at this point, it's not really. That would be the only challenging thing, is keeping in mind how many objects are going to be in front of the player when they're running through here.
Fair enough. And I guess that kind of goes because obviously with us being now in 2025, we actually do now have iOS as a potential third platform.
Yeah.
Which I haven't looked too much into on that front, because honestly, there's not enough player base to warrant that, in my opinion. But out of curiosity, like, have you looked into like the iOS builds, and is it really any different from Android?
I don't have an iOS device yet to test. The answer is I will be looking at it, and I've briefly talked to the VRChat team about the update, or probably getting on beta or something. And I know that the beta, or whatever, or maybe alpha they're calling it, I know it's out and people are on it. I just haven't purchased an iOS device to do it yet. But I have seen the black cat on the iOS, and the only thing that stuck out to me was I use a shader that calculates vertex colors for some of the stuff, and I saw all those were broken. So it seems like, for me, the biggest issue is going to be changing shaders, maybe. Hopefully that's all I have to worry about.
Not knock on wood.
Hopefully I upload it to iOS and it's perfectly fine.
Right. No, for sure. That'd be
that's what I'm hoping for.
Right. That'd be the best course of action. It's just like, okay, upload. Is it good? Yes, awesome. Like, don't have to do anything. That's the yeah. Ideal, right? It's definitely a crazy thing that we can now play on mobile devices.
And on Rec Room, the black cat is on what is it? The Switch, which is cool.
Really? Oh, that's funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess that's always something I've always wondered, because we have so many platforms now. And I've said this on previous episodes. One of the things I would love to see somehow, some way, is for someone to get VRChat to work with like the Nintendo Labo VR thing that they got going. I would love to see that. I would genuinely actually buy for the Switch if that were to happen. Like, I have the Switch, and I would actually legitimately buy the VR like Labo thing that they have, just to see what the difference is. Because you can play like other games with the whole VR thing. It's weird. I'm not huge into it at the moment, but I thought that'd be a funny thing just to see what would happen.
I was never a big Nintendo person, so I don't even know. I do know what the Labo is. I don't even know what games are on it though.
Yeah, there's not too much. I mean, it's mainly like little knick-knack stuff. Like, I know the VR one, quote unquote, there's like a like a robot mecha boxing one, and it's all, the thing is, it's all, besides the actual Switch itself, it's all cardboard.
Yeah,
So
I saw that.
to have a VR headset made out of cardboard could go really bad depending on how rough you are with your VR headset. But I don't know. I figured that'd be a weird thing to, because you're talking about different platforms and stuff. Just imagining it be on the Switch, because I mean, it runs on Steam Deck, right? And granted, Switch is not as powerful as the Steam Deck, but it could be possible. Even if it's an Android build, it's semi possible to say the least. But anyway,
Switch 2 is coming out apparently.
True, right? Yeah, Switch 2 is
It's probably gonna run better on that.
Yeah, VRChat on the Switch 2, that'd be crazy. No, but I mean, it's definitely something to think about in the future. So I guess one of the other questions I had, so obviously with all of the 28 worlds that you have made, you like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of atmospheric worlds like Amber Tower, Suburban Lakehouse. There's a lot. There's gonna be a whole VRC list probably somewhere on this description. But so I guess one of the things I wanted to ask in that regard, because there are quite a lot of like chill spaces and whatnot, but you also do have like the air hockey in space. I think it's called space air hockey, if I remember correctly.
Oh God!
There's always that.
You really went back.
I try to do my research a little bit. But you also have like the Pitch Black Cat and a few others as well. These little game experiences, to say the least. Blah, blah, blah. Words are hard. But I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask, because oh yeah, there was also space golf, if I remember correctly.
Fucking space golf.
So I guess kind of going from like an atmospheric world, creator into like a semi-game dev, what was like some of the differences you faced when making these worlds versus some of your other worlds?
It was. I think you have the Switch. So like those are like some really early worlds where I was just. I guess you can call it like I was just playing around with ideas, and I just was trying stuff. I guess I don't know how to really answer it. I guess that stuff was like so new and so at the very beginning. I was extremely uninformed on how to build worlds and stuff. So all of it was just me messing around, playing around. And I ended up going, so it was like, at first it's like, what can I build? Like, can I like just build something, anything, and get it out? And those were like some of my first worlds ever. And then it was like, okay, like what else can I do? And then I ended up making like space golf and like the air hockey world. And this is like before Udon Sharp or scripting or anything. And I didn't even understand any of that. So I was like just trying to use the tools that they give you in the SDK to do something. And, what comes from that is these worlds, I don't even think they work anymore, by the way. I don't know if you can even join them. So, but yeah, what came out of that was like space golf, these worlds that I was just trying to play with. And I was also like I said, I had the mindset where I wanted to do it for a living. So I thought people would want games anyways. So I was trying to figure it out. But ultimately, I would move away from making games because I don't want to make games. I like sitting and talking and hanging out with people. And so that's what I ended up focusing on. So I ended up like kind of leaving all those ideas behind and building a restaurant and a house and then doing that over and over and over and over again.
Right. Fair enough. Hey, it's everyone has their own passions when it comes to things, and sometimes it takes learning, through trial and error and stuff. So it's definitely cool, to say the least, when it comes to that. that you went from making games into making these experiences that people can enjoy, just having chill hangout sessions or whatever the case may be. I mean, now just kind of there's gonna be probably a bit of going back into the Black Cat, because a lot of connections lead into that. But I mean, now you have the Black Cat, being as popular as it is, you have communities that do almost daily hangouts. I know I've interviewed a few of
cool.
them. Like we've had Pride VR on the podcast. We are gonna have Synapse on the podcast. So I guess one of the questions I want to ask, now that groups are, I mean, groups have been around for a while now, but in your eyes, how does it feel to have so many communities want to host daily hangout sessions in your worlds?
Honestly, I feel pretty disconnected from like owning that world in a way, where when I get on this game, I always go back to just I like chaos, to be honest. And it's funny the Black Cat's turned into what it is, a chaotic like hub almost for this game. So when I'm in there, it's like I'm the owner of it, but I'm also just kind of like I'm just a player in it. And so all these communities, when I go and I see all these communities are playing or have their instances and stuff, I'm not like the thought of like, wow, I can't believe all these communities are like in my world. The thought is like, do I want to hang out with the Synapse people, or let's go to this group. What are they about? And then I just jump in more from a user point of view. And does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
It's cool. It's definitely like, it's cool when you stop to think about it. Like, it's definitely cool, but there is like this weird disconnect from having something that is as popular as the Black Cat's become.
No, fair enough.
And I mentioned Rec Room earlier, where like we publish it on Rec Room with the help of some Rec Room creators, and it pops off there too, and it's like, what? All right.
Oh man, I guess that's a question I wanted to ask, because we've talked about it a few times now. So with Rec Room, what are some, like, because I don't play Rec Room by any means.
Me either.
So have you at least gotten to experience it at all, like through Rec Room, or are you just completely?
Yeah, it's just as chaotic.
Fair.
Sometimes more chaotic, honestly. Every time I'm in there, it's just like, what is going on in this world?
Fair enough.
I don't know why it's like that. I swear it's not my fault.
I guess kind of one of the questions in that regard then, because obviously it's more than likely a different, build and everything else. So what are like some of the differences between like the Rec Room build versus the VRChat build?
Well, at first we built it with Rec Room's whole system, but then Rec Room changed to a system where you can upload from Unity. I don't know if I'm pretty sure that's available for everyone now, but when we first implemented it, I think it was limited on creators, but I'm not actually sure. But now we uploaded the Unity version of it into the game, but there's some like I guess like developing differences. Like you can't bake lights, you have to use their lights, and you have to do all the coding like in the game. And then in terms of Rec Room's got their like coin system. I mean, I guess VRChat does too. So we changed everything to work with their token system, and there's like different things you can access that are very like Rec Room specific. So it's very much the Black Cat, but it's just some little differences. It's very clearly a Rec Room version of it, I guess.
Fair enough. Now, here's a question in that regard then. Do they have mirrors in Rec Room?
Yes, they do.
I've never thought about it until we started talking about this, but I couldn't imagine Rec Room mirror dwelling.
Dude, that was one of the big things. I was like, when I worked with a group called Ink Overflow, which are a group of Rec Room creators, and they built the world. And one of the big things was I was like, okay, we need a mirror here and a mirror there, and they were trying to explain to me, and I still don't get it, but they were trying to explain to me how mirrors work in the game, and it's different. Like you can't just have a mirror on. There's like a timer. There's like some weird things with it. I don't get on enough to remember what it was. But there are mirrors in there.
Fair enough. No, that's a very interesting thing. And granted, like I said, I don't play Rec Room. I've not played Rec Room. I do know some creators of VRChat that have also worked with Rec Room. Whether it's game worlds or, certain stuff like that. But it's just definitely I personally don't see a reason to at this current moment. That's just me though. That's a 100% personal thing. Hello everyone, real quick, just want to pause the episode right here. I want to thank you all so much for the amazing support when it comes to the Noved Squad and the Noved Notes Podcast. We are now officially in the creator economy, which you can kind of see right behind me. You can now officially tip the podcast, or if you're interested to do monthly subscriptions with more benefits and perks for the world and upcoming projects, feel free to check it out at the group page, noved.6608 for the group page. Of course, if you're enjoying what you're watching, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. But let's get back into the episode. Woo! But yeah, I mean, it's definitely crazy to think about that, the Black Cat itself now is on multiple platforms. Were those two the only platforms, or are there other places that, the Black Cat can be found?
Those are the only two. If you see it anywhere else, well, I guess it's on Chill Out too, but I think it's broken on Chill Out, and I don't plan on updating it. Nothing against Chill Out. I don't play Chill Out, and like the only reason I put it on Rec Room to begin with, like I don't play Rec Room, but I was like DMCAing so many like Black Cat worlds, just copies, and like yeah, so I just thought, well, I DMCA'd a couple for some very specific reasons. Obviously,
Sure.
If you're recreating the world, I wouldn't remove it, but there were so many copies popping up on there. I thought, maybe I should look into putting it on there.
Just do it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. People have taken ripped versions of it and put it on Roblox. I've thought about maybe doing Roblox also, but Roblox is like just a separate beast. I just don't understand at all.
Yeah.
So I just
no, that's I don't even Roblox, huh? I mean, there's a huge player base over on Roblox. Don't get me wrong, but
I mean it's giant, but if I could make it successful on there, I would go for it just from like I guess a business standpoint. It would make sense, but I'm a VRChat person. I play this game.
Right. No. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe down the line, if honestly I could see it pop like with how chaotic Rec Room is. If people have found out that the most chaotic place on VRChat, is now in Rec Room, I feel like that would be a good business opportunity, potentially. I'm not a business person, but the best thing I do is marketing, and that's it. But
yeah, I don't know. Maybe one day.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I guess kind of to switch the topic a little bit, because obviously there's a bunch of other worlds.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask, besides the Black Cat, is there a particular world that you have made that is one of your personal favorites that you've made so far?
One of my personal favorites would be a world called the Mansion, which is the world I made directly after I made the Black Cat, and it's just it was like one of the first mansion worlds. I built it with Pro Builder in Unity, and it's not. I wouldn't argue that it's a good world, but I just like it a lot. It's got a vibe. It's got a vibe, and it like takes you back to like a certain period in VRChat history, I guess, and also takes me back, I guess, also. But every time I'm in there, I'm like, damn,
Fair
this
enough.
was peak.
This was peak. Yeah. No, it's funny that you mentioned that because there are times that I'll go to like, you know, instances of the Black Cat, whether it's Synapse or just random group publics, and every time, at least one out of every 3 instances, I always hear like, "Yo, this world is peak VRChat, yada yada yada." I'm like, have you like?
Well, like
It's great,
with,
but
yeah. With the mansion, that was like, I don't know. I was so proud of that world when I made it, and now later on, I made Suburban Lakehouse, which was like trying to emulate that world, kind of. And I think it did a good job because a lot of people really liked that world also. And then the McMansion was kind of it was a different layout completely, but it was a similar, like, I guess, homage to that past world. I also really like houses that have like half basements. So, and if I do a house with a half basement, I just always think about the mansion. So all these worlds, like all these houses I'm building, are kind of like similar to. I actually have one that's not released yet that is like the same thing almost.
Well, hopefully we'll be looking forward to that maybe this year, maybe next year, hopefully, knock on wood.
So sometimes when I make stuff, I'll go crazy and I'll like model and I'll model and model and I'll get somewhere and then it's not that I lose motivation. I'll just like get excited about another thing and then I'll start working on something else. And so I've got like 4 projects that are just not done, and they may never be done. You may never see
They're
the
just
world
in
I just
limbo.
mentioned. Yeah, I could show you if you want. If you want to go to during this interview, if you want to see it, I'll show it at the end or something.
Yeah.
It's got potential. It's a good world, though, to be honest.
I mean, fair enough. Give a little like sneak peek at the end. Yeah, I mean, and I can always throw like footage on the screen like while we're, talking and whatnot. So that's no issue. I mean, we could do a tour afterwards.
Yeah, we totally can. And I'll probably have a world out probably next Friday. I made another restaurant.
Oh, really? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'll say with this episode,
I can show you that too.
Yeah, no, I'd love to because I mean this episode's going to be coming out at the end of February, so we could talk a little bit about that and whatnot. I'll say out of curiosity, like what is the newest project that's going to be? That's such a weird way of phrasing it.
It's like it's a mix between I think Panera Bread and Culver's. That was my motivation. I don't know if you know those restaurants.
I do.
I'm guessing
no, I live in the Midwest. I do, or U.S. Midwest. So yeah, no, I am very familiar with both of those restaurants.
That was my motivation.
That's such a weird combination, but I kind of get it at the same time. I
wanted like breakfast bagel with like a family style fast food restaurant.
Interesting. I'm definitely intrigued, and we'll throw some footage up on the screen of the world and stuff, which we'll record after the fact. But no, that's crazy. I'm excited to see that. That's got me all curious now. Gosh darn it! I'm glad I ate breakfast before coming on the podcast, before recording. That would have made me really hungry because I could smash some Culver's. I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. Some cheese curds. Ooh.
Yeah, Culver's is good.
Well, no, that's what's up. I was say, so while we've talked a lot about like the worlds and stuff. One thing I did want to touch base on, because you actually do create tutorials on YouTube when it comes to doing things and uploading worlds and whatnot. So out of curiosity, what made you want to start doing tutorial stuff and like kind of getting that type of content out there?
I wanted to start because when I started, there was like one video that was helpful, and that was it. I could not find anything else. So I started making tutorials pretty early on, and I'm trying to remember. I think it was a Unity Pro Builder tutorial, and that video got like over 100,000 views. And I would see like people would upload versions of that in the like game, and I would see like their versions in like community labs or something, and I just thought that was so cool, and so I just keep doing them. And honestly, I want to do a lot more of them because I like when I don't know, I like that people find them helpful. And my recent ones, I think my recent ones are the best ones because it like accumulates all the knowledge I've gotten from from like 4 years, and I try to jam everything that I think is useful into like a 3 hour video. I'm just like, okay, this is everything. Write it down. I want to do more of them, but I got into it because there was like nothing out there for anybody at the time. Now there's tons of stuff, but
Fair. I mean, there's not a lot of them, at least from what I was researching, there's not a lot of them that go full from start to finish. So
yeah, that's the thing. It's like okay, if you're brand new, there's like building VRChat worlds it's game development, and that's a broad topic, like 3D modeling, Unity optimization, like getting like just 3D modeling something and getting your mesh prepared for Unity or for any game engine. But I do stuff with I make Pavlov stuff often too. Like that's a whole skill set and like a whole job category, that people can make a living on just there. And when you're making a VRChat world, there's a million things that you should know about. It's tough, especially if you're new, and especially if you don't know Blender, especially if you've never touched Unity. Like it's tough to hit it all. So with my tutorials, I'm like doing my best to be like, okay, you need to 3D model. Here's how you 3D model something. Okay, you don't just have to 3D model, but you also need to make sure you can optimize this and bake lights to it. So this is how you do UV unwrapping. This is how you do light probes or light map UVs. And it's like, at that point they're like, what does optimization mean? What does baking mean? And so I'm like, okay, so I'll say that in the tutorial, and I'll be like, okay, I know you don't know what that means yet. Just we'll get there.
We'll get there.
But then there's the whole, once you export it and you bring it in, it's like, okay, how do you set this up to be like a good model to use? And how do you make a prefab? And how do you bring in your world? How do you make players walk around in it? Because people, if you don't know, you're going to upload a world and you're going to fall because you've put no colliders in it. So I try to hit like everything, assuming that you're like new. So and at this point, I don't know. I want to do more stuff like that, honestly. I think that stuff is the most fulfilling, to be honest. But also, I want to like spend all my time 3D modeling random props also. So
Fair.
I'll do that for like a year, and a year will go by, and I'll be like, oh, I should do another tutorial.
No, fair enough. No, well, that's cool that you take it from the brand new player's perspective. That's really cool. Not a lot of people that make this tutorial content do that, at least from what I've seen. There's probably a few out there, but at least from what I've researched over the past couple of years of being on VR, and being interested in doing like 3D modeling and world creation, it's very hard to find, especially with the constant updates and everything. It's hard to find something that works 99% of the time at the very minimum.
Yeah. I can imagine it's kind of intimidating too if you see a video though and it's like 4 or 5 hours long, because I ended up taking 3 hours to model the base or something, and I'm like, so So, and then some people might know how to do the 3D modeling stuff, and then they just want that other stuff. So they'll see this fold tutorial and they'll be like, I'll go to something else, which is, it's like fair enough. I feel.
Yeah. I'd say that YouTube chapters is probably one of the most influential things when it comes to those longer videos. And I've honestly thought about doing it for the podcast, but that's a lot of work. I have to look into how to do it. But like, I feel like the whole chapter thing is definitely a useful tool in that concept.
Yeah, it definitely helps. When I edit through, I'll mark the chapters for me, like while I'm editing the video, because you record a 6-hour video, I edit the whole thing. You gotta watch the whole 6 hours.
Yeah.
So like when I'm going through it, I'm like marking, and I'm like, all right, this is where it should be, and then I hope somebody finds it useful because it takes a lot of time.
No, for sure. I say, because with how long, kind of to go off topic a little bit, but since you've been around the platform for quite a long time now, what is one world or experience, not necessarily made by you, but just in general when it comes to VRChat, that you always recommend going to or checking out at the very minimum? Like, what's a world that stands out to you?
Oh, I should look at my favorite worlds. Honestly, I can't do that because I'm actually not on my account here. You know that.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we want to give them the context?
No.
I'm
on a different computer. That's the context.
Yeah.
An experience that I often tell people. I mean, the stuff that I like the most is like the old school stuff and the old school worlds. And those are the worlds that I always end up going back to. I guess that's my answer.
Fair. No, that's fair. I mean, there's a lot of
the one thing that I do recommend to people, and I'm not like super active in this community either, so maybe it's weird that I recommend it so often, but I do tell people if they're like trying to find worlds and trying to do cool stuff to join the community meetup, and every week they go to a bunch of different worlds every week, and I'm like, if you're trying to like meet creative people and do like look at new stuff coming out and seeing what people are building, like that community does a really good job. And I actually haven't gone in a while. I take that back. I went last week and I showed my world, but that was one of the early communities that I was a part of, and they're like still going and they're still doing it, and I think that's a great place. So if people are asking me like where to hang out or what to do, I probably will tell them about the groups I'm a part of that are open.
No, fair enough. And yeah,
because then you meet people, and then you can do a million other things. And the main thing that I do on VRChat is sit in front of a mirror. So I like worlds that are good for sitting in front of a mirror.
Valid. Yeah, that would, jokes aside, that would make a lot of sense. Knowing some of the worlds you made.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum of that question, because you've been around, and I'm assuming you've been to plenty of Black Cat instances probably over the years.
1 or 2.
Yeah, 1,000. But give or take. But I guess one of the questions on the opposite end, what's like the weirdest thing that you've seen when it comes to, VRChat, or maybe if it was in your world or if in VRChat in general? What's like the weirdest thing you've ever seen?
Well, the weirdest thing, I actually don't know how to. I don't know. There's a lot of crazy things that happen in the Black Cat, a lot of annoying things that happen in the Black Cat. Are you asking me in the Black Cat specifically, or just in general?
It could be either or, in Black Cat or in general.
Well, in the Black Cat, the greatest thing about being the owner of the Black Cat is I can kick people when I want. So when I'm in an instance, I can at least control the instance if I need to. But as far as like weird things that go on, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I swear, maybe in an hour, if I walk away, I'm gonna be like, oh, I could have talked about this thing.
Yeah, that's valid.
I don't know what weird thing.
A lot of things can happen in a black cat. You never want to go to a black cat 2-3 a.m. your time zone. You never know what's going to happen. It's like the whole it's the whole bit of like strange things are afoot at the Circle K. If I know that might get lost with national.
I would say the weirdest thing that happens is when people in the black hat will treat me like once they figure out every once in a while I'll get a group of people that will like surround me. And they will treat me like I'm some huge celebrity or something. I do think that's kind of weird. It's fine to like. I genuinely don't mind people coming up to me and being like, "Whoa, you created yada yada yada." Or I also really enjoy when people come up to me and they like take the piss, and then we can have like a moment of like being assholes to each other. Don't be. I want to get people wanting to be an asshole to me now. I like the chaos. I like when crazy things are happening. But when I get like a huge group of people and they're all like looking at me and wanting something from me, I don't know. I feel like that's weird and not in a good way. I'm just like, okay.
It's a little overbearing, I guess, to say the least.
Yeah. And outside, maybe, and I don't know how I come off in VRChat, but I'm a very like quiet, outside the game at least, I'm very quiet and introverted and I don't talk to people. And I don't do like any, like, it's hard to, if you message me directly on Discord, it's easy to get a hold of me, but like, I'll never like comment anywhere. I'm just like always in my own world, I guess. So when I'm in the black hat, it's like, sometimes I have to be like complete opposite.
No, that's fair. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of in that same category, to say the least. Depending on, of course, circumstantial situations, but it's definitely a crazy thing what VRChat can accommodate for people in that regard. Because I feel like people are more social on this platform probably than any other social platform out there. Like, even if it's Twitter, I'm not calling it X. I refuse to call it X. Blue Sky, YouTube, or not YouTube, TikTok, whatever social platforms are out there, Facebook, Reddit, heaven forbid. But it's definitely a different experience, to say the least. Being in VR and being face to face with people, even if we're wearing goofy avatars, one could be a Ugandan Knuckles, one can be a Brush avatar. Like, it's a different surreal experience, to say the least.
Yeah.
I guess kind of to go back into the whole chaotic side of things, because obviously you've been around for a while. What was like one of the things from where you were back then when you first started till now? Obviously a lot of chaos has probably ensued within that long time frame. So what's like an example of like a favorite moment of chaos that you've either started or you experienced?
Favorite moment of chaos.
That's a really weird way of phrasing that question. It's 10 in the morning.
Well, my most enjoyable time when I'm in this game is genuinely. This is gonna sound weird. Okay. I like fighting with the random people of Black Cat. I like when someone comes up and then they like stand in front of you in front of the mirror and start yelling at you, and then I can yell back, and then we get into an argument. I think that's really funny. I really like that.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah.
And that happens all the time in the world.
Oh, for sure. I mean, gosh, before I remember some good memories of that happening almost any time I was in the Black Cat, and I'd be hanging with friends, and you know,
Yeah,
granted, I was never a
but they
mirror
have to
builder, but
engage with you.
right, and you just have
They
some
have to
random
engage
come
with
up
you.
and start like just random insult just for no reason, just out of the blue, and then you're like, I guess we're doing this, and just like you get up and just start firing back, and it'd be a potential shouting match. Some of
Yeah.
them are very creative. Like, bro, it scares me how creative some of these people are getting when it comes to throwing insults at each other. Like, I'm like, bro, what time of day do you have to be like so creative with insults? Like, it's it's definitely a crazy
Obviously,
thing.
if they go too far, like outside the realm of like taking the piss or, you know, you know what I mean. What the possible things that you could do. I'm gonna kick you on the spot, but
Right. Yeah. And you have that authority, so you have the extra leverage.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I can imagine. Also, if you did that to me in real life, if you come up to me, I'm running.
Just run. Just
Yeah, don't yell at me.
well, that's what's up. Well, I'll say, I guess, because we are running a little bit out of time. Surprisingly, this did not feel like almost an hour now. Um, like, one of the questions I did want to ask,
Yeah.
because you've been, environment building and world creating for a while now. What is one piece of advice um, that you can give to somebody who maybe wants to start, designing environments and world creating? Like, what's like a good piece of advice that you would give to like a person who's just starting out?
Well, there's a lot of technical things you need to learn for building worlds, and building worlds is game development. It's a whole field. My best advice, I think, is to build what you want and then do your best to build the thing that you want. And as you run into issues, you can Google what's happening. And eventually, you do that long enough, you're going to get like little bits of info every time you do that. And eventually, you'll have like an arsenal of like information on how to build your world. So it takes time, but you should just really focus on doing what you want. And if you're building something and you're halfway through and you feel like you want to start something else, just throw it away. It's fine. Just throw it away. Start on the new thing. I don't know. The whole thing is like I don't know how a lot of people view world making in here, but like it's a hobby. It's fun. Like make sure you're having fun. I don't know if that's cliche to say. It's just like
Nah, I don't
you're not
think
going to
so.
finish a world if you're not having fun. Like just make sure start. A lot of people message me and they'll talk about like wanting to be a big world creator in the game or something and they want to build the community or something, and they'll have this like huge dream of a VRChat creator. I don't know if I feel like you can do it. But they'll never have like opened Unity, and they'll be like, oh, I want to make worlds for a living and do this like you do. And it's like, well, stop worrying about like what other people might like to have, and just you're gonna build the best thing you want to build. So focus on that. And then I say if you have problems, feel free to DM me. I'll do my best to help.
Fair enough.
And I tell people that all the time. So, but I'm not gonna get on a call with you. I don't like.
Valid. No, valid.
Text me your
fair.
issue. Text me your Unity issue, and I will do my best to point you in the right direction. So at least you know like where to go. But
No,
yeah,
fair
I
enough.
tell people that all the time. So if they need help.
No, fair enough. Well, Spooky, I'm not gonna lie, I read the name above you and I almost called you the other person's name. Spooky.
Yeah.
It has been an absolute honor to get to kind of know you a little bit more and get to talk to you. first and foremost, thank you so much for coming on and talking to my goofy ass for an hour.
No problem.
But before we end everything off, I do want to give you a chance to tell the listening audience where they can find you. Any links you want on screen in the description. But yeah, tell them where they can find you and where they can find your stuff.
You can find me at youtube.com/spookyghostboo. I think that will work. My YouTube channel. You could also find me on Discord. My username is Spookyghostboo, all lowercase. Very simple. I also have a Blue Sky account, but I have not finished putting a profile picture on there, and I don't even know how to link you to it. But maybe one day it'll be linked to my YouTube, so go to my YouTube. So find me on YouTube or Discord or message me or something.
Fair enough. Well, yeah. I mean, also, you should definitely, go check out their, the sites where they sell things. Go check out some of the stuff.
Yeah, booth. What is it? Spookyghostboo.booth.pn. And then my Gumroad account, which is /SpookyGhostBoo, I think.
They'll be all on the screen and in the description. Go check out all the links.
Or my Patreon, or my Ko-Fi, or...
Go check them all out. All the links will be down in the description. Make sure to go check all of them out. Thank you once again for coming on for the 52nd episode. Can y'all believe we've been doing this for a year now? No, of course. It was a blessing. But with that, ladies, gentlemen, everybody inside and outside the ballpark, that has been it for episode 52 of the Noved Notes Podcast. I want to thank you all so much for listening, watching, depending on what platform you're on. If you enjoyed what we talked about, feel free to click the like button down below. And of course, if you're coming to check out some of the other episodes, why not hit that subscribe button? You're already coming back anyway. And of course, with this being the last episode of season 1, episode 52, comment down below. I'm going to give you 2 things to comment down below. First and foremost, what's your favorite part about the Black Cat? And the second one, this is more for the podcast side of things, which episode was your favorite? Which one of the guests was your favorite to listen to or experience or watch, depending on the platform? Feel free to comment that down below too. But I want to thank you all so much for listening for 1 whole year. Could not have done this without you guys and without the amazing guests that we've had on. But with that, I will see you in season 2 of the Noved Notes Podcast. Take care and peace. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Noved Notes.